Hi there everybody, this is David, and you really would be hard-pressed to find a bigger Mana fan than me. I've been playing this series ever since I was a little kid, and I got Final Fantasy Adventure back on the Game Boy when I was like 9 years old. And I didn't know it back then because, I thought that it was a Final Fantasy game, but that was actually the first entry in the long-running Mana series. And now here we are over 30 years later with the 5th mainline entry into the seminal series, and in today's video sponsored by Square Enix, I do want to tell you all about Visions of Mana, what to expect from it, and of course, why you really do need to play it. And I do think that that's worth a sub as I try my hardest to reach 100,000 subscribers. And with your help, your like, and your sub, I know that I can get there. Thanks again so much for that, and if at any time during this video you do want to learn more about it, or even order it for yourself, please just click the links below. And now, let's dive deep into one of my favorite action RPG series of all time. First things first, you're going to need to know that Visions of Mana is releasing for the PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, as well as the PC via Windows Store and Steam. So it really is accessible for just about anybody. And, as I did say before, this is the 5th mainline entry into a series that's been going on for well over 3 decades. So you might think to yourself, where should I start? Can I start with Visions of Mana? Or do I need to go all the way back to like Final Fantasy Adventure or Secret of Mana? And my answer to you is no, you do not need to do that. This is a great place to start. It is the place to start. Very similar to the Final Fantasy series, all the games in the Mana series do share common themes from one game to the next, such as bright, colorful graphics, memorable music, tons of different weapons to play around with, a quirky cast of characters to enjoy, elemental spirits who bestow powers upon you, multiple party members to play around with and switch out in combat, and an offbeat, emotional narrative about the power of mana and the legendary Mana Sword. That being said though, if you did want to go back and really explore the history of the series, it's easier than ever to do so now, first with the Collection of Mana, available on the Nintendo Switch, which does include the first 3 games in the series in their original form. Then there's the remake or remaster of Trials of Mana and Legend of Mana, available on the Nintendo Switch, PS4, and PC and mobile. And then even the remake of Secret of Mana available on PS4 and PC. So if you really do like Visions of Mana, and then you want to go on back and see where it all began and deep dive into the history of the series, now is definitely the time to do so. Visions of Mana begins in the quaint fire village of Tiania, where everyone is preparing for the coming of the fairy and the naming of the alm. You see, the Mana Tree sustains the entire world, so every 4 years alms are chosen to travel to the Mana Tree in order to rejuvenate the flow of mana by offering up their souls to the tree. And a soul guard accompanies those chosen alms to ensure their safe pilgrimage, and is this story giving anybody else some major Final Fantasy X vibes? It is to me, but anyway, back to the story. On the day of the fairy's arrival, Val brings his childhood friend Hina to the meeting place, and it's there that the fairy descends before her and appoints her the great honor of becoming the Alm of Fire. Val, though, ever the chivalrous knight, accompanies her per his duty as the soul guard, and away they both go, embarking on a journey of a lifetime to meet up with some new friends. On their journey, they'll find elemental vessels that will allow them to tap into the elemental's powers that can be used in the world for exploration, class changes, and combat. And Val and Hina will also be joined by other friends, each with their own powers and abilities who you can also swap out and fight with at any time. And while Hina herself doesn't actually fight on the front lines, she does back you up with her healing on the sidelines. So now, let's talk about the other alms, the world, and their combat prowess. Starting with Karina, our little southern firecracker who's from Longren, the Vale of the Wind. An unfortunate accident took one of her precious dragon wings a long time ago, but despite that, she still longs to see the outside world and be appointed the Alm. What's really cool about her though is that she is a 2-for-1 special, because at her side is Ramco, a sacred beast cub who battles right alongside her. And during battle, she acts as kind of like a jack of all trades, with healing, buffing, and area of effect attacks, while Ramco supports her on the front lines. Our very serious beastfolk Morley is from Return, the Moonlit Parish. Morley carries the weight of the world on his shoulders since a terrible disaster befell his hometown. But after meeting Val, he faces off with his painful past, and that's a good thing, because this fellow fights on the front lines with the best of them. With great precision, agility, and evasion, he excels at striking enemies quickly in close-range battles with katanas, daggers, and canes. And as we all know, it wouldn't be a JRPG without some royalty tagging along, and Palomina fits the bill nicely. She's the Queen of Illistana, the capital of the Deep, And despite having her kingdom's best interest at heart, she finds it difficult to navigate the social expectations while also caring for her younger brother. So she does what she believes is best for her kingdom, and she joins up with Val and Hina, and in battle, she acts as the party's black mage, specializing in powerful long-range magical attacks. And rounding things out is Julie, a sproutling from Virtus Burrow. But he's really the only one there, as all his companions are in a deep sleep, and it's his job to water them. In all honesty, he probably lives like a pretty boring and vegetative life until Val and his team comes and stumbles across him. In battle, he's pretty much your white mage, supporting the party with healing and regenerative abilities. As I said before, who you have in your party and who you control in combat is completely up to you. I mean, that's part of the mana staples after all. And Visions of Mana takes us a step further, with tons of different classes to change into, as well by equipping yourself with mystical artifacts called elemental vessels. And as we all know, I love a good class system. The more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. And each class plays totally differently as well. Some might have like slow but powerful attacks, while others might make a formerly fragile character into a tank. You'll really have to experiment with them all to find out what works for you. Each time that you encounter a new elemental vessel, they'll bestow their powers upon you, gifting you their powers, and granting each character a new class to turn into. And you can do the math. There's 5 characters and 8 elemental vessels, so there's 40 different classes here to experiment with. The party combinations and possibilities are quite endless. And I personally know just how I am. Back in Secret of Mana, I was the one who maxed out the weapon and magic levels for every single character, and I can totally see myself doing the exact same here, and maxing out the elemental plots for everybody too. This is pretty much just like an elemental skill tree for each character, and as you gain more levels and more elemental plot points, you'll be able to advance further and further to acquire more powerful moves and abilities. And every time that you encounter a new elemental vessel, you'll unlock more classes and therefore more branches of the plot too. Not only that, many of the moves that you learn from the elemental plots are still usable even if you change classes. However, the class-specific abilities can only be used whenever you're in that specific class. So you're really going to want to have to mix and match to find what works for you in the situation that you're in. Personally, I just adore this system. It's a callback to the first and third games of the series, where you gain skill points every time that you leveled up. And it just kind of gives you those little shots of dopamine that you need to keep on going, getting that next skill, and eventually maxing out every class for every character. It's just like how I simply had to level up all those weapons and magics in Secret of Mana as a kid. I mean, who didn't do that? Didn't everybody do that? Speaking of Secret of Mana, remember how each elemental would grant you different spells and powers and abilities, and you would sometimes encounter those crystals on the world map and you had to cast a specific spell in order to move on? Well, Visions of Mana took that idea and really ran with it, because here we have the elemental vessel system, which you can use both inside and outside of combat to great effect. For example, you can use Luna to slow down time and cross ice flows while outside of battle, but inside battle, you can summon her vessel to stand inside the summoning circle and it will speed up time for your team, granting you a haste effect, while the enemy will conversely receive a slowing effect. Later on, you'll even be able to use Salamandra's vessel to fly through the air like a rocket ship. Or how about being able to swim underwater with Undyne? Or even using Dryad to grow large flowers to carry you across the broken paths. There are so many different possibilities with the vessels, and what really gets me excited about it is, remember, this is a semi-open field game. So what that means is that you're going to be wanting to go on back to previous areas and then use those vessels to open up new paths, finding sweet treasures and cool secrets every time that you unlock a new elemental vessel. So you're definitely going to want to go ahead and do that. And there is nothing more that I love than finding all those hidden paths and secrets, because exploration is paramount in JRPGs here. Gone are the days of wandering around through multiple areas just to get where you want to go, because in a Mana series first, we have fast travel straight from the menu. When you open up a large map screen, you'll be able to warp to any past regions that you've been to, and you'll know exactly where you want to go, because that same screen also keeps track of how many elemental areas there are, and how many treasure chests you've gotten too. So if you see that you haven't gotten everything, you're going to want to warp your little bum right on over there and check it out with your newfound powers. But fast travel isn't just limited to warping around, as you can travel pretty quickly in the regions too, just by summoning your pickle. And he can move at supersonic speeds through the massive regions, jumping up to higher ledges that you can't access yourself, and kicking the little baddies out of your way, so if you do want to avoid combat, he is great, as he just steamrolls over everything in your path. Not only that, but later on, you'll see some familiar faces that will allow you to travel over to new continents, such as riding Vuskov to sail the open seas and soaring through the sky on the back of the sacred beast, Flammy. Each region is just chock full of things to do, from tons of side quests that, again, the game does keep track of for you. And for those who really do crave a challenge, there's the Elemental Ares, where you have to defeat enemies inside before the time runs out. And this can be quite daunting, but the rewards that you're granted are definitely worth it. Not only that, but there are nemesis monsters roaming around the field who are super powerful, but only go after them whenever you're sure that you're ready. Then, in kind of like a mini metal twist, grizzly syrups are just about everywhere, and you can pick these up and turn them into local dud bears in town for some great rewards too. This really incentivizes you to get off the beaten track and get all those syrups. And boy, do I implore you, please get off that beaten track, because this game is beautiful. You're going to want to see all the sights and really soak up everything that it has to offer. And while you're out there, taking in the scenery, your characters will talk to one another, comment on their objectives, shoot the breeze, and just kind of bond, which really does help you fall in love with them all, the same way that I've fallen in love with this game. I've been waiting pretty impatiently for a new mainline entry into the Mana series for almost 20 years now, and it's finally here, and I can say with confidence that this really is a must-play game. This is a back-to-the-basics approach that Square Enix has been pulling off with aplomb lately. They took what worked in the Trials of Mana remake, amped it up a notch, and pulled this little gem out of the oven, and now they're serving it to us on a silver platter. So now, I do want to ask you, how do you feel about Vengeance of Mana? Do you feel the same way that I do? That Mana is back with a vengeance? Let me know in the comments, because I do love hearing from you. And if you'd like to learn more about Vengeance of Mana, please just click the links below in the pinned comment and video description, because you do not want to miss the game of the summer. And before you go, here's another video that I really do think that you're going to like, going over the best RPGs released so far this year. Please do check that out, and as always, have a good day.